A farmer lends a hand to a lost and injured hiker. There lived a diligent farmer named John. With unwavering dedication to his family's land, he embraced a life of simplicity and serenity on the farm. One evening, the tranquility of his solitude was shattered by the unexpected arrival of an injured hiker at his doorstep, desperately in need of assistance. With a heart full of kindness, John opened his door to the weary hiker, providing warmth and nourishment for the night ahead. Yet, as dawn broke, his existence veered into the unforeseen. On his farm, a gathering of police cars, lawyers, and news reporters awaited his arrival, each one poised for the unfolding drama. Unbeknownst to John, his seemingly small gesture of goodwill was on the brink of transforming his existence in unimaginable ways. Greetings, dear listeners, and welcome once more to Unveiled Narratives. Today, I have a touching tale to unfold for you. At the close of a long day spent toiling in the fields, John Miller, a farmer in his early 50s, finds himself in his modest, softly illuminated kitchen. Beyond the walls, a tempest unleashes its fury as the wind wails through the fields and rain relentlessly pounds upon the glass. At the stove, John stirs a pot of warm milk, the creamy surface rippling gently, as if whispering secrets of comfort and warmth. On the counter beside him rests a crusty loaf of bread, its surface telling tales of time and warmth. With hands that tell tales of hard work and resilience, he deftly maneuvers the knife, its gentle scrape against the cutting board almost lost amidst the howling storm outside. He gently arranges the slices in a weathered bowl, pouring the steaming milk over them, observing as the bread tenderly yields and starts to dissolve into the warmth. This humble meal serves as his reward for the day's toil, a serene ritual that brings a sense of solace. As he lifts the spoon, poised to savor his first bite, a sudden knock at the door pierces the tempest outside. John stands still, his hand poised above the bowl, caught in a moment of suspense. The knock resounds once more, this time with a greater intensity, reverberating through the aged walls of the farmhouse. In these parts, visitors are a rare sight, particularly when the weather turns like this. With a deep furrow in his brow, he reaches for the torch that dangles by the door. Abandoning his pristine plate on the counter, he steps forward with careful intent, drawn by the mysterious sound. As the door creaked open, the beam of his torch revealed a drenched figure on the porch, a man in his early 30s, with disheveled hair clinging to his forehead and a face marked by fatigue. Water cascaded from his tattered garments, gathering in a small pool at his feet. "Please, I need help," the man stammered, his voice barely a whisper against the fierce howl of the wind. John's eyes grew large as he absorbed the sight before him, a man with pallid skin, unsteady in his movements, and deep scratches weaving a story across his arms. With a swift motion, John moved aside and signaled with urgency. "Step inside, swiftly now, for the chill of the outside world will surely claim you." The man stumbled through the door, a path of water marking his entrance on the wooden floor. He stood with a hunched posture, his breath coming in labored gasps, and his ankle twisted at an unnatural angle. "Gather round the warmth of the fire," John spoke with conviction, leading him to a chair by the warm stone hearth. As he tossed another log onto the embers, he gently coaxed the flames higher, their warmth swiftly enveloping the room. The man settled into the chair, a deep sigh escaping his lips, as his trembling hands reached out to the flames. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice a gravelly echo of emotion. With a swift motion, John seized a worn towel from the hook nearby and offered it with a gesture of kindness. "Here, dry yourself off," he said, his voice warm and reassuring, like a comforting embrace. As the man dabbed at his face and arms, John's keen eyes, every detail was etched in memory, the scratches, the bruises, the torn fabric clinging to his frame. "What tale do you have to share?" he inquired, his tone soft yet tinged with worry. The man winced, his movements rigid as he maneuvered the towel across his arms. "I was hiking," he began with a hesitant voice, his phrases interrupted by profound inhalations. "Ventured along the rugged path among the stones. I stumbled and twisted my ankle, and—" He let his voice fade, his gaze fixed on the ground beneath him. "To be truthful, I never imagined I would emerge from this." John knelt beside the cupboard, carefully extracting a tin of a concoction of soothing salve and a carefully wrapped roll of bandages. He cast a comforting look at the man as he rose to his feet. "Ah, but here you stand, and that is the essence of it all." Rest assured, you are in a place of safety. As John meticulously tended to the man's wounds, the man winced at the sharp sting of the salve, yet stayed quiet, his appreciation evident in his tired, rain-soaked gaze. You're fortunate it's nothing more serious, John said, his hand steady and sure as he expertly wrapped the swollen ankle with a practiced touch. This should suffice for the time being. But do your best to avoid it as much as possible. The man inclined his head, his voice gentle and heartfelt. Your kindness leaves me at a loss for words. You chose to lend a hand, even when you didn't have to. John shook his head with a hint of amusement, a subtle smile playing at the corners of his lips. What sort of man would I become if I chose not to? Now, let me weave a tale of warmth and nourishment as we find you something delightful to savor. John stepped back into the kitchen, his eyes drifting over the bowl of bread and milk he had set aside for himself. The meal was humble, the sort he frequently turned to after exhausting days of grueling labor. His stomach growled loudly, a sharp reminder that he hadn't eaten since breakfast, a hurried slice of bread, and a cup of coffee before heading out to tend the farm. He took a moment to gather his thoughts. In that fleeting instant, the heavy pull of his hunger beckoned him forward. Yet, the vision of the hiker, drenched and trembling by the flickering flames, consumed his mind. Without a moment's hesitation, he reached for the bowl. It may not have been grand, but it held just the right amount to provide, offering solace and a sense of security to those who seek it. With careful hands, John brought the bowl into the living room, setting it down softly on the table before the hiker. Here, he said with a calm determination, it's not much, but it will bring you warmth. The man gazed at the bowl, then lifted his eyes to meet John's gaze. What tales do you have to share? Will you not partake in this meal? I already ate, John said, the untruth flowing from him as effortlessly as his grin. This is something you truly require more than I ever could. With a moment of uncertainty, the man finally reached for the bowl. The initial morsels were taken with great caution, his unsteady hands revealing the depth of his frailty. Slowly but surely. Yet, the comforting embrace of the meal started to restore a rosy hue to his cheeks. In the quiet of the room, as the man savored his meal, John settled into a chair by the flickering fire, a pile of aged, tattered papers resting gently on his lap. The man looked up between bites, catching sight of John, who was fixated on one of the pages, his brow knitted in deep concern. The dancing flames cast a warm glow, revealing striking words at the summit of the parchment. Announcement of foreclosure. The remainder of the page lay partially concealed under John's hand. Yet the tension etched on his face conveyed a narrative all its own. After a brief pause, the man began to speak in a gentle tone. Is everything all right? He inclined his head towards the papers, his voice measured, mindful not to tread too far. John glanced upward, momentarily surprised, and then released a weary sigh. Just a bit of farm debt, he remarked, his voice steady, as though he wished to reveal no further details. The man nodded, aware of the gravity in John's voice, yet he opted not to delve deeper into the matter. With a heartfelt sincerity, he expressed his hope for a favorable outcome, his eyes holding on to the farmer's tired visage for just a moment longer. John conjured a subtle smile, carefully folding the papers and placing them on the modest table beside him. He massaged his temples, attempting to alleviate the burdens of the day, before finally shattering the stillness with his words. What do they call you? Andrew, the hiker responded, gently setting down his spoon. And what about you? John, the farmer replied with a straightforward demeanor, reclining in his chair. Their conversation danced lightly. Yet the looming storm and the unspoken tension etched on John's face cast a heavy shadow over the room. As Andrew completed his meal, his gaze drifted towards the window. The rain relentlessly battered the glass, while the wind cried out, echoing a foreboding warning. Once the storm eases up, I should probably head out, Andrew said, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. I wouldn't even consider it, John responded with unwavering conviction. This evening, my friend, you find yourself in no state to venture out into the world. Remain in this place. Take a moment to rejuvenate. At dawn, you may take your leave. Andrew gazed at him, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Are you certain I wouldn't be a burden? John brushed aside his worry. You're not imposing at all. A restful slumber is the very foundation of what you seek. Leave the rest behind. With a hesitant nod, Andrew felt the gentle embrace of the fire's warmth and the soothing comfort of John's hospitality start to mend his frayed nerves. Once the dishes were cleared away, John reached for a cozy, thick blanket nestled in a nearby trunk and offered it to Andrew. "You'll take my bed tonight," he declared, his voice firm and resolute, leaving no space for dissent. "I shall rest beneath the stars tonight." "No, I can't allow you to proceed with that," Andrew insisted, his voice firm and unwavering. "Your journey has been remarkable." With a raised hand, John brought silence to the room. "I must insist. It's a matter of fact." With no option left but to yield, Andrew trailed behind John into a cozy bedroom tucked away at the rear of the house. The humble bed was adorned with a patchwork quilt that seemed to be crafted by loving hands, its vivid hues standing out boldly against the faded walls of the room. "Get some rest," John said, as he took a step back towards the door, his voice carrying a gentle weight, like a soft breeze whispering through the leaves. "Our conversation shall continue with the dawn's light." As John stepped back into the living room and settled onto the well-loved couch, the tempest outside started to ease. The farmhouse, weathered by the relentless wind and rain, remained steadfast against the encroaching night. Within the cozy confines, the dancing flames painted elongated shadows on the walls, bestowing a momentary embrace of warmth and security upon the two souls united by the tempest outside. In the guest room, Andrew found himself wide awake as well. The farmer's kindness lingered in his thoughts, entwined with the haunting image of those documents that refused to fade away. The comforting meal, the fresh bandages, the inviting bed, it exceeded all his expectations, particularly from a person who evidently had so little to give. He made a vow to discover a means to repay the man's kindness, even though the path forward was shrouded in uncertainty. As dawn broke, the tempest had moved on. The gentle echo of hammering roused Andrew from his slumber. He blinked against the early sunlight filtering through the small window of the guest room, his body still weighed down by the fatigue of the previous day. As he shuffled to the window, his gaze fell upon John by the barn, diligently mending a broken wooden gate with careful, deliberate strokes. The golden morning light stretched its fingers across the ground, weaving long shadows that danced around John's weary form as he toiled away. As Andrew donned his jacket, he ventured outside, feeling the invigorating chill of the air caress his face. He took a deep breath, relishing the serene calm that enveloped the farm. As he approached John, a flicker of guilt stirred within him. Despite all the warmth and refuge he had received, it was evident that John had little to offer. "Morning," Andrew called out, his voice slicing through the stillness of the dawn. John halted in his motion, letting the hammer rest gently on the earth beneath him. He brushed the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Good morning. I trust you had a restful night." "I did, thanks to you," Andrew said, his voice laced with appreciation. As I prepared to express my gratitude, I was ready to take my leave. He waved his hand towards the main road, a bittersweet ache tugging at his heart as he faced the moment of farewell. John nodded, raising a hand, his tone a blend of warmth and determination. "Just a moment, please. Stay a moment longer. Gather round, for I have a tale to share with you." With a sense of wonder, Andrew observed as John vanished into the barn, abandoned to his thoughts. His eyes drifted to the distant boundary of the farm. He took a few steps towards the edge of the property, curiosity guiding his feet. In that moment, his gaze fell upon a signboard, its message partially hidden by the encroaching weeds that had claimed it as their own. The striking letters carried the name of a renowned. Once there was a corporation, a name that loomed large, infamous for devouring small farms whole. Underneath, subtle words suggested a lurking dread, a caution that resonated even without complete comprehension. The sign stood tall, an ominous figure against the tranquil morning, its presence casting a long shadow that whispered of untold tales. With a flutter of apprehension, Andrew shifted his eyes once more towards the farm. Close to the barn, he observed a line of barrels cleverly arranged to gather rainwater, their spouts mended with care, united with fragments of metal and tape. The improvised setup conveyed a wealth of meaning. What could lead a farm of this magnitude to rely so significantly on the whims of rainwater? He traced the gutters with his gaze, observing their weathered, mended condition. As he meandered nearer to the fields, another detail drew his gaze, a parched irrigation ditch, its bottom fissured and barren. It appeared forsaken, as though it had not felt the touch of water in ages. Andrew knelt down to connect with the earth, sensing the rough, fragile texture disintegrate beneath his touch. He stood tall, casting a glance back at the house, his mind swirling with thoughts. The elements aligned, a vast corporation's shadow looming, a farmer depending on the fickle rain. Parched fields that once flourished, all markers of a soul grappling with powers that stretch far beyond their grasp. As Andrew's heart constricted, he came to understand the depth of John's suffering. The stillness of the farm was gently broken by the delicate crunch of footsteps on the earth. As he glanced over his shoulder, he spotted John making his way towards him, a Hessian bag in hand, the fabric worn and weathered, hinting at the secrets it might hold. With a warm smile, John handed him the bag, a gesture that spoke volumes. A small offering for the journey ahead, vibrant vegetables and sweet fruit gathered from the farm's bounty. It may not seem like much, but it's the smallest gesture I can offer. Andrew accepted the bag, his voice imbued with a gentle warmth of appreciation. Your kindness has already woven a tapestry of generosity, allowing me to find refuge here, sharing a warm meal, and tending to my wounds. Your kindness leaves me at a loss for how to express my gratitude. With a casual lift of his shoulders, John dismissed the moment. Fear not the burden of repayment. Your only task is to return home safely. Andrew paused, his fingers clenching the bag with a sense of urgency. Before I take my leave, might I pose a question to you? John tilted his head, a spark of curiosity igniting within him, glimmering in his gaze. Indeed, absolutely. Andrew waved his hand towards the rain barrels. I observe that you are gathering rainwater. Is that merely for backup or? A shadow swept across John's face, and he let out a deep sigh. More than mere backup. Not long past, Evergreen Corporation acquired the rights to the water in this region. They crafted a mechanism to redirect the river's flow, leaving scant resources for the surrounding farms. Once upon a time, there existed a group of individuals whose lives intertwined in ways both mysterious and profound. They presented their services to me, naturally, but at a price that would plunge me further into the depths of debt. Thus, I rely on the rainwater and whatever small remnants I can gather. Andrew nodded slowly, his mind swirling with a whirlwind of thoughts. And the realm? Does it belong to you? John's jaw tightened as he gazed out towards the fields, his expression a mystery waiting to be unraveled. It is. For now, yet they've pursued it for years. Evergreen sought to acquire it, and when I declined, they employed every tactic to sway me otherwise. Faced with challenges, I encountered disputes surrounding zoning laws, witnessed false allegations regarding environmental violations, and even saw attempts to buy out my neighbors in a bid to isolate me. He took a moment, his voice steady yet laced with a hint of fatigue. This land has been a cherished part of my family's legacy for generations. I shall not relinquish it, regardless of the challenges they present before me. Andrew took in his words, casting another look at the far-off signboards. It's hard to fathom the experience of enduring such trials, clinging to hope amidst the storm. John shrugged, a subtle smile gracing his face. This land holds tales beyond mere agriculture. This is where my roots lie, where my tale began. To surrender is not a path we shall tread. Andrew paused, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face before he found his voice once more. Were those papers you had last night related to the farm? John's brows arched in mild astonishment at the unexpected inquiry. Indeed, there are some legal notices and claims regarding debts. There's no need for you to concern yourself with that. I understand that our paths have only just crossed, Andrew started, his voice measured and thoughtful. However, if it's not too much trouble, may I have a glance? Throughout my journey, I've navigated a considerable number of contracts and legal matters. Perhaps I could lend a hand. John gazed at him, a blend of appreciation and doubt flickering across his features. That's a generous offer, yet I wouldn't want to weigh you down with my troubles. It's no burden, Andrew declared with conviction. If there's even the slightest opportunity for me to lend a hand, I would be eager to give it a go. John regarded him thoughtfully for a moment, then gave a slow nod. Very well, I shall bring them forth. As John vanished into the house to retrieve the papers, Andrew lingered by the barn, his thoughts swirling with endless possibilities. He was uncertain if he possessed the power to truly assist, yet the thought of abandoning John lingered in his mind. Facing this battle alone felt deeply unsettling to him. As John made his way back, cradling a modest pile of documents, Andrew received them with a careful grip, a spark of resolve shining brightly in his eyes. With heartfelt sincerity, he expressed his gratitude. Thank you for placing your trust in me. I shall explore the possibilities that lie ahead. With a final wave, Andrew vanished down the path, the bag of fresh produce clutched in his hand, and a decision beginning to take shape in his mind. John lingered for a moment, gazing at the desolate road ahead. He let out a sharp breath, trembling. He tilted his head, seeking to dispel the doubts that lingered in the air. In silence, he pivoted towards the barn, retrieving the hammer he had laid aside moments before. As the rhythmic sound of nails piercing wood resonated throughout the farm, John's mind began to wander. He endeavored to concentrate on his tasks, yet the echoes of Andrew's farewell words danced in his thoughts. Could a stranger truly lend a hand? Could he dare to dream? With a determined resolve, John dismissed the nagging thought, tightening his jaw as he struck the metal with greater force, as if each blow could silence the uncertainty gnawing at his mind. At this moment, there was a task at hand, and that was the sole aspect he could steer. Time flowed seamlessly, the sun ascending ever higher in the vast expanse above. John transitioned seamlessly from one task to another, addressing the persistent repairs that the storm had bequeathed upon him. He brushed the sweat from his forehead, murmuring to himself about the creaking boards and the stubborn hinges that refused to cooperate. As he pounded away at the stubborn board on the barn door, the distant roar of engines suddenly pierced the quiet of his mind. He stood still, clutching the hammer with a fierce determination as he faced the winding dirt road ahead. A sleek black car emerged, its polished exterior shimmering under the warm embrace of the afternoon sun. In the shadows, two police cruisers followed, their lights dimmed yet undeniably present, while a van adorned with a news station logo lingered closely behind. "What in the world?" John whispered, placing his hammer aside. A shiver coursed through him as the convoy rolled into his driveway, stirring up a haze of dust. His heart raced as he brushed his hands against his jeans and took a tentative step forward. Andrew emerged from the news van, clad in a sharp suit that transformed him into someone almost unrecognizable. His composed and earnest presence suggested a deeper intention. From the sleek black car behind him, two lawyers stepped out, each clutching a polished briefcase, their faces set with determination and professionalism. Moments later, the police officers emerged from their cruisers, surveying the area with a calm yet commanding presence, their arrival infusing the scene with an undeniable weight of gravity. John's breath caught in his throat. His fists tightened as a wave of unease slithered up his spine. "What's happening here?" he called out, his voice strained. "What brings the police to this place? And what of the reporters?" With careful strides, Andrew drew near, lifting his hands in a calming gesture. "John, I understand this may seem overwhelming, but I ask you to place your trust in me. I have a story to share with you." John's gaze flitted nervously from the police to the reporters, a storm of anxiety brewing within him. "You better explain fast," he said, his voice cutting through the air. Andrew paused a few feet away, his voice unwavering yet resolute. "I delve into the depths of corporate corruption, shining a light on the struggles of small farmers. My journey as an investigative journalist has led me to uncover the truths that often remain hidden in the shadows." John's jaw tightened, a battle of pride and weariness waging within him. "I didn't ask for any help," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I know you didn't," Andrew said, his voice taking on a gentle warmth. "This battle transcends your individual struggle. It encompasses a greater narrative, one that cannot be conquered in solitude." He gestured towards the group behind him. "These lawyers are here to examine your documents. The reporters are present to ensure your narrative is shared. And the police are here to make certain the corporation doesn't retaliate or attempt to interfere." John's gaze drifted towards the gathering, where the lawyers stood poised, their faces a mask of professionalism, while the reporters busied themselves with microphones and cameras, exchanging hushed whispers. The police officers stood vigilant, their mere presence casting an unsettling shadow over the scene. "What makes this worthy of my trust?" After a moment, John inquired, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Andrew drew nearer, locking eyes with John. "For years, I have delved into narratives like yours, and the sole reason I find myself here today is that you offered me refuge when it was not required of you. If we allow the lawyers to examine those documents, we can uncover the truth that lies within." John paused, caught in a delicate dance between doubt and a glimmer of possibility. At long last. He shifted his gaze towards the house. Moments later, he reappeared, grasping a bundle of papers tightly in his hands. His hands quivered ever so slightly as he passed them to one of the lawyers. The lawyer navigated the documents with an expert's finesse, each page turning with deliberate intent. The moments that ensued stretched endlessly as John remained rooted in place, a tight knot of tension forming in his chest. At last, the lawyer raised his gaze, his face a mask of seriousness yet unwavering determination. "Mr. Miller," the lawyer began, his voice steady and authoritative, "your contracts have been carefully examined. From our discoveries, it appears that the corporation you are involved with has been partaking in deceptive activities. They've crafted deceptive fees and twisted debts to set their sights on your property." John felt a sudden hitch in his breath. "Are you suggesting that they've been deceiving us all along?" The attorney acknowledged with a nod. "Indeed. They have been taking advantage of gaps in the system to coerce small farmers like yourself into relinquishing their land. Now that we possess this evidence, we are ready to take action. We shall swiftly seek an injunction to halt their actions without delay." The reporters approached John, their questions flowing like a river, while their cameras immortalized each fleeting moment. "For how long have you been navigating this journey?" one of them inquired. John paused, his voice quivering ever so slightly. "Months have passed," he confessed. "They've been sending notices, raising fees, and threatening to take everything I hold dear." In that moment, uncertainty enveloped me, leaving me at a crossroads with no clear path ahead. I believed I might have to surrender. Andrew gently rested his hand on John's shoulder, offering a sense of comfort and support. "Now, you have company on your journey. This tale is unfolding for all to see, and their deeds will no longer remain in the shadows." As the police officers took their positions to safeguard the area, making certain that no representatives from the corporation could meddle, the lawyers laid out the forthcoming steps. "We are preparing to embark on a legal journey against the corporation for their unlawful actions. One of them mentioned that you will also receive compensation for the hardships you faced." The day blossomed with a whirlwind of happenings. The solicitors moved swiftly to submit the essential paperwork. In a scene unfolding under the watchful eyes of reporters, John shared the tale of his farm, while the police stood guard, ensuring the safety of his cherished land. As the sun dipped below the horizon, whispers of the corporation's dubious dealings began to circulate, igniting a firestorm of indignation and demands for justice. In the weeks that followed, the legal battle reached its climax, ultimately unfolding in John's favor. Once upon a time, a powerful corporation found itself facing a monumental decree. It was commanded to wipe the slate clean of all debts and restore any assets that had been taken. In a twist of fate, they faced hefty fines for their deceitful deeds, and a portion of the settlement found its way to John, serving as a form of recompense for his troubles. With a sense of newfound stability, John embarked on a journey to invest in his farm, breathing life into his equipment and expanding the horizons of his operations. His land, once teetering on the edge of despair, transformed into a vibrant emblem of unwavering strength. Time flowed on, month by month. The farmhouse, once a beacon of solitude, had transformed into a vibrant hub for the community. Once, the fields lay barren, but now they flourish, bursting forth with an abundance of fresh produce. In a land where the sun kissed the fields, the farmers, bound by their common trials, wove together a vibrant cooperative, safeguarding the future of their way of life. One evening, as John stood on his porch, gazing at the sun dipping below the horizon, memories of the tempestuous night that transformed his life flooded his mind. He recalled the dread, the solitude, and the sudden appearance of an unfamiliar face. He recalled the warmth he had offered, never anticipating it would leave such a deep mark. A surge of appreciation enveloped him. In his quest to assist Andrew, he came to understand that he had not merely rescued his own farm. He had ignited a movement destined to uplift the whole community. He discovered that within the bleakest tempests, a glimmer of hope could always emerge, and that even the tiniest gestures of kindness could create ripples of profound and enduring change. Before you take your leave, be sure to explore the videos displayed on your screen. They are brimming with delightful tales that we are certain will capture your heart. Embrace the moment, and let the spirit of generosity continue to shine.